For the first time in the history of the Gambia Printing Publishing Corporation proudly introduces the Biliomatic exercise book printing machine. The machine has the capacity to print more than 20,000 books per hour. Yes, 20,000 books per hour. It also prints magazines, newspapers, calendars, flyers, normal books and all kinds of printed documents plus items at affordable prices. With the Biliomatic printing machine, GPPC can now render high quality and non-size restricted printing service supply across the sub-region. Rush now and partner with GPPC for all your public and private printing service needs. Print with us today and you'd be offered highly professional, reliable and efficient service delivery by our team of experts. The Gambia Printing and Publishing Corporation is here to meet all demands and is reliable at all times. For more info, contact us on 437-4493 or 437-4402. GPPC is Gambian and it's yours.
When we touch down, better broke down.
Gamcel G Fiber, now you can enjoy super fast internet in gigabytes. G Fiber is affordable, stable, secured, and accessible to homes, businesses, and enterprises. With Gamcel G Fiber, the future is speed. Gamcel, creating a brighter future in communication.
Gamcel data, now even better. Enjoy 20% extra data on all Gamcel data bundles. Buy 20 megabytes and get extra 4 megabytes. Buy 50 megabytes and get extra 10 megabytes. Buy 100 megabytes and get extra 20 megabytes. Any amount of Gamcel data bundle you buy, you will receive 20% extra data for free. Dial *302* data amount hash or go to your EJA menu and choose your data bundle now. Gamcel data is fast, lasts longer and very reliable. Gamcel EJA
Are you thinking of owning your dream homes? EJA Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3 or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible payment plans at our Sanyang Seaview Estate, where you can enjoy the cool breeze with modern infrastructure such as tar roads, covered drainage system, modern electrification with street lights, gated entrance with security posts, and social amenities such as gas station, shopping mall, medical clinic, park, schools, children daycare, and a lot more. Our dedicated team of professionals will keep the estate clean at all times, provide security and patrol team within the estate premises, install latest technologies such as CCTV, Wi-Fi, home network installation, solar panel, and power backup system. Also, check out for our additional home facilities and interior design service such as premium tiling, wall plaster, home landscape, fingerprint home lock, and a lot more. Visit our office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464-838. WhatsApp us on 3259220. Or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJA Investments. EJA Investments, we are first in properties.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Race for the State House. And this evening with me I have Alima. Alima, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We also have Esa and Abdullah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And today we have a special guest, lawyer Aziz Bensouda. Aziz, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we're going to start with something that has been trending, as the Gampetriolum issue. I know we will end up today. We'll be looking at Halifa Sallah and Mama Kande. Last week we looked at Usinu Dabo. Week before we looked at President Barrow. We'll be looking at Esa and Abdullah Jammeh next week. But before we get into the politics, we will start with the Gampetriolum issue. There have been different versions of stories coming in. yesterday we saw the Ministry of Communication, Petroleum, and of course Trade came out and had a press conference. And then a lot of people said there's more unanswered questions, really. The liability issue is coming in. 24 hours, we have two lawyers here. More than 72 hours, we still have the Petroleum boss and 2 others detained at the police. What is going on? There's so many theories that is happening. Aziz, what do you know about the Petroleum saga?
Thank you very much. Well, I suppose as much as most people, based on the press conference that came out yesterday, but I agree with you. It left more questions than answers. Petroleum is a limited liability company, but it's owned by Social Security, Gambia Port Authority, Ministry of Finance has a small share, and GNPC. So it's owned by the government indirectly. The sole purpose of Petroleum is to act as a warehouse to store petrol for the big international traders, so that Gambian OMCs, these are the retailing, petrol retailing companies, don't have to be ordering ad hoc from Senegal, which can cause market prices to go up and down. So if we have a company like Petroleum, whose sole purpose is to store petrol so that Gambia can have a stock for the security of the country, and so that our oil companies don't have to be importing all the time small quantities. How can we have a situation where the government informs us that more than half of the stock was missing? They're supposed to be monitoring it on a daily basis. These are huge amounts of petroleum. We're talking over 15 million liters of petroleum. It could not go in a day. How long has it been going on? When they're being audited, when they're being checked, what are the management systems in place? Fine, an investigation is ongoing, certain people have been arrested, but the credibility of the country is my first major concern. Secondly, this is, and without exaggerating, a nation-stopping event.
Yeah.
If we have a situation where there is zero diesel stock, taxis won't operate, NAWEC could stop providing electricity. If jet fuel is missing, planes can land, but they can't refuel to leave. So it's something that all Gambians should sit down and ask the government. This is one of the fundamental reasons why we have a government, to manage something like this. This is critical infrastructure. How did it happen? And we really haven't got that answer. The press conference yesterday told us what has happened, but hasn't told us why and how. No one has been held to account. We heard management is assisting the investigation, but I think we need to know more. Yeah.
We need to know more, but also even the procurement processes. I mean, in this country, that is an issue as well, because questions were raised about having GAJ company being the only the sole supplier for GNPC, and this whole issue started with the GAJ issue, where a certain amount of money was paid accordingly, cash payment, over $1 million being paid to the GAJ sales rep that was supposed to be paid to GNPC managing director. And it brings the question, how can a company who is that big, and even GNPC being a government agency, dealing in cash, especially in dollars, is that a normal practice in our business?
Well, I can't speak to their business practices.
Yeah.
It could be normal for them. My main concern is GNPC is a very big company.
Yeah.
They have a commercial department, they have finance department. They should be able to procure their own petroleum. I'm not aware of any petrol station GAJ has. I'm not aware of any import arrangements they have. We know that there are 3 big importers into Gambia. Well, not importers, 3 big traders in Gambia. Trafigura, they mainly supply GIA oil. ADAX mainly supplies Atlas, and I think PSTV mainly supplies GNPC. So I would ask a question, why did GNPC go to GAJ? I read their press statement that they offered $20 below the next competitor. If you know anything about the petroleum market, you know that doesn't make sense. Either you, the person that's offering $20 below, doesn't know what you're doing, or the person who's $20 above doesn't know what they're doing. The prices don't fluctuate that high. But it also takes us back to the fundamental question: why is government operating in a private sector. You never hear Petrogas is doing a tender or GIA Oil is doing a tender. These are pure private sector markets. Government should probably think about stepping out so that these questions of corruption don't arise. If GACH won the tender, and if what we suspect is true, which is most of the petrol that's missing is from GACH, GACH should not be able to take petroleum from Gam Petroleum.
Yeah.
Gam Petroleum is a store. It's not a place you go to buy petrol.
Yeah.
If I put 10,000 liters there, my 10,000 liters should not be touched. Another player should not be able to come and take part of my 10,000 liters, 10,000 tons and supply it to someone else. So we don't really have the full facts.
Yeah.
But my main question is, how come GACH was able to take petroleum from Gam Petroleum, of which, who is their supplier? Let's ask it that way. Who did they buy from to put in that in that facility? And if they took the petroleum that was owned by Adax, PSTV, or Trafigura, then that amounts to theft. Now, I'm not alleging theft. I'm just saying that if these dots are connecting that way, that's a failure of administration, and that's a very questionable and suspicious practice.
But what we have also seen, numbers were coming out. The GACH GNPC is negative when it comes to negative 283.0. I don't know what that figure is. Castrol is negative 182. Afri Oil, Pure Energy, they're all negative except GIA Oil, Atlas, and Petrogas. These are the only three major suppliers that are not negative. Seems like everybody is taking diesel or petrol from the depot without having any stock there. And this has been going on for a while now. That's why we are in this situation. It brings us to the accountability issues. Who is approving these transfers? Who is approving these allocations? And how is that even being monitored? Who is monitoring all of this? Because this is a serious issue. You're looking at the numbers. GACH has the highest number of missing in the negatives when it comes to the number of fuel they've taken from the depot. And this is not their stock. Where are they taking this stock from? It's like Sulbuki Hauma, in all of. So who is monitoring what is happening at the depot?
Well, first of all, this concept of having negative stock, it doesn't exist, and we should avoid it. If I give you 10 mangoes to hold for me, and I come back, you either have 5 mangoes, 6 mangoes, 10 mangoes, or you have 0. You cannot have minus 5 mangoes. So it's wrong for Gam Petroleum or wherever those numbers came from to be saying so-and-so has negative stock. It should not exist. Back in the 1990s, it was normal for everyone to find your own petrol, bring it to Gambia, sell it. And that's why we used to have shortages from time to time. But once the facility was set up, the facility is huge. It can take, I think, 50,000 tons of mixed different types of fuel. If Fatou brings 10,000 tons and keeps it there, if Aziz wants to buy fuel or diesel from Fatou, I have to make an order, you have to approve it, you notify Gam Petroleum, release to Aziz 300 tons. If Gam Petroleum tells you, yes, Fatou is holding X amount, but Aziz is holding minus, immediately your allegation should be, well, you've stolen my stock. Nobody should have minus. You're just a watchman. You're not a facility that's authorized to take your own decisions on stock. When you give fuel to Aziz, you charge Aziz a throughput charge, and that's where you get your money. You have no authority to be taking and giving. That's why you give stock reports. You give everyone their own stock report. I'm holding this much for you, I'm holding this much for you. So this concept of GACH has negative, Afri Oil has negative. Gam Petroleum is not authorized to lend fuel to anyone or supply to anyone. They can only give fuel to the people who put fuel there. And this is the question of credibility now. Gam Petroleum is owned by, let's say, owned by government, to keep it simple. Gam Petroleum gives everyone holding fuel a certificate saying you have 20,000 metric tons, you have 10,000 metric tons. These suppliers take those certificates to international banks, to HSBC, to Bank of America, and they put it there as security so they can borrow money and supply to other countries. If the banks realize, well, the certificates that are coming out of Gambia, I cannot trust them, even though it's a government, I can't trust them because this government can steal your fuel. They will tell them, well, I now no longer can accept these certificates. That's a credibility dash on Gambia. Who will be the next supplier to come and bring 10,000 tons to live in Gambia for 6 months? You will always be asking the questions, is my stock still there? So that's why the government should be careful how they even report this, that so-and-so has negative. No one can have negative. It's either my stock is there or it's zero. And if it's zero, who took it? Did they sell it? If they sold it, where is the money? At least I wouldn't be so upset if you tell me, your stock is gone, but here's the money. But your stock is gone and there's no money? That's a problem for the country.
Wow. Alima, what's your observation this time?
Okay, I think I'll take it up from his question of credibility. Like, this begs the question of who is responsible for all of these stocks. I can't go into figures. I think he has eloquently explained how this works. But then towards the end, when he talked about borrowing money from HSBC and international banks, this is concerning all of it. But then it raised another concern for me. Like I've been saying here, there's an image we are trying to rebuild about Gambia. I said here the last time that food self-sufficiency is priority when it comes to our political discussion, our development, but we should look into other aspects, corruption, youth employment, and I think this is central to that. These questions of transparency, or the lack of it, if I must say, or accountability, begs those questions that these loopholes, who is taking these without authorization or having minuses and all of that. So, and I think it's sort of timely. It's sad, but it's sort of timely that we are in such a political discourse or election, so that these questions would also be fresh in our minds, that when they take these trails and talk about underdevelopment with regards to malnutrition or food or road building roads as they've been doing, or primary education, this is 2021. Universal primary education should not even be a question. But things like this also matter, because they're not just about fighting corruption in the Gambia, which is key to it, but also our image outside. How much does it affect FDI, foreign direct investment that comes here? How much does it affect other international trade issues? And I think that it has opened sort of a can of worms for us to have discussions beyond what we've been seeing, road construction, food self-sufficiency, and things like that.
Esther, last time I remember you saying, I don't know how we can go nominate a president whilst we don't even have fuel and diesel in our cars. Yeah. But what would you say the economic impact of this has caused to our country? Right now, even before, I think last week, they have started importing fuel from Senegal. Obviously, that alone is going to cause impact on our economy. How much do you think this is affecting our economy? I don't know. I know you might not be an economist, but
in fact, that's what
you're going to say. But I mean, generally.
Yeah, from a layperson perspective, just to say that I'm not an economist, but then just like I said last week here, that we have, fuel shortage or fuel crisis in this country, and all of a sudden people go to nominate the same president. The government, without coming out, in fact, issue a statement on that problem. Like, it's common knowledge, even if you are not an economist, you know very well that this has an impact on the economy. I mean, the economy is stagnant because, like he said, taxes not moving, vehicles not moving, people not moving, in fact, to get to their workplaces and all that. Yeah. But then this boils down to the problem of governance. It has to do with bad governance. It has to do with, literally corruption that we find ourselves in this country since 2017. He raised a very important question, and that was also the question in mind since, this whole saga started. Why all of a sudden GAJ? Because I think of GAJ, in fact, what is GAJ? Knowing them in the past, they've been involved in another scandal here, gun importation scandal. People talked about that. They said investigations. I think finally they were cleared. They were allowed to sell those guns. Now we're talking about also GAJ in petroleum or fuel business, to this point of getting into this whole scandal, where the whole country is talking about it. In fact, the government coming out to make a statement. I also saw a statement written by GAJ company itself. I mean, but literally, when you read it, basically, it's just a matter of trying to exonerate, Abubakar Jawara from this whole thing. I mean, which I'm not interested in, because what I'm interested in is to answer the salient questions that he raised. How did this whole thing happen? And like I said, the press release or the press conference from the government, it raises more questions than answers. And I think this is normal. Like, it's normal in Africa when we come, especially in the Gambia today, when things happen, scandals, the government will come, just make statements instead of answering questions, providing us with answers. They tend to raise more questions. And like I said, it all boils down to the problem of corruption in this country. These whole things are also happening because we don't have, in fact, an anti-corruption commission, an anti-corruption bill, which is still lying in Parliament. Because people at some point are able to get closer to government, do certain things that they want to do, and knowing fully well that nothing will come out of it. I always take reference to Tom Bogie, who wrote a book called The Looting Machine. This is so evident. It's a typical example of what is happening in other countries. It's not only Gambia. If you read that book, it tells you what happens in Angola, what happens in DRC. When these big financial conglomerates or business people will come and get closer to the government, I mean, they don't necessarily directly influence what happens out there, but then they get closer to government thinking that, yes, they can do anything and nothing comes out of it. But it's surprising and shocking to some who's, I've seen now Abubakar Jawara being, I think, arrested. I'm not sure whether he's bail still, because, since that happened, I've not followed whether he was bail or not.
Being arrested. Abubakar
Was not arrested?
No, it's the sales.
Okay, is the
GAJ sales.
Okay,
Drame, the MD and the operations manager.
Exactly, Drame. Some people are being arrested anyway on the matter. But then, so yesterday I was talking to someone who was telling me that, look, even Drame himself is so well connected in this country. I mean, these things are taken to be normal, like, oh, these are big people in the country. When they are arrested, at the end of the day, they are so well connected and nothing will come out of it. Telling me that Drame is well connected. And I asked myself, look, I asked him, why are you telling me that Drame is so connected? Are you telling me that he is above the law or he can do anything and nothing comes out of it? Likewise, Abubakar too. But then it all boils down to the type of government that we have, especially if you have a government that has not clear priorities, that has no clear priorities as far as addressing the problems of the people are concerned. This is what you tend to have. You're talking about fuel shortage. We're receiving message today, I'm not sure how credible it is, but we're receiving message again that there might be shortage again. And then I was just wondering, why is the government coming out to even make this statement? This crisis was happening long ago, probably, during the fuel shortage crisis, this whole thing started. And now they have not even addressed that. What we are seeing now is to respond. I don't know, maybe it's because of elections, that they are coming out to try to clear themselves out of this whole mess. I don't know. I'm not accusing that they have a hand in it, but then, it raises a lot of questions about the credibility of the government that we have, and of course the seriousness or lack of seriousness of the government as far as addressing basic problems in this country is concerned, especially related to corruption.
Still, Ablai, I saw a letter before coming to this program, government, giving 100% tax waiver on any fuel product that comes into the country because of this situation, because we need fuel, actually. So if you buy fuel from Senegal, if you bring 100 whatever to the country, you don't pay GRA, nothing. So when you look at all of that, how much are we losing as a country? Who should be, somebody should be responsible for this. This is more than an economic crime. I mean, there's a lot of money involved in this, but it seems like the government is not interested. You look at the press statement yesterday, there was nothing that they were telling us. They were just saying, oh, we're being accountable, we're telling you what is happening. But there was nothing really concrete that they were telling us. And who should be responsible for all of this?
Well, I think since Gam Petroleum, as is very eloquently said, is owned by the Gambian people, effectively, because if Social Security and the others, we need for pensions and for when civil servants retire, so government is, so that's why these investments are important, so we have enough money in cover to take care of pensions and over Social Security related benefits. So if GAM Petroleum, not a trader, but simply a guardian of people who deposit fuel, and how that comes in and out is determined by those traders who deposit that fuel with GNPC. So that means there has to be a very serious, adequate measure or measures to make sure that there are no improprieties that affect that relationship, because obviously now you have a public body, a government agency responsible for being a guardian of this fuel that has been deposited within, within its depot. So either the regulations or the laws are very weak, or they are not effective. Either that, or the executive or those responsible to make sure that this is properly managed and administered are not doing their job for financial or other reasons. But the implications are huge. Last week, there was almost a standstill because of shortage, significant shortage. That affects ambulances, that affects, if not NAWEC were to shut down, because there is significant loss, jet fuel were to be not enough for airlines coming in. Those have significant implications, not only for this industry, but for the airline industry as well, because this petroleum, like other ones, are part of international organizations. So for example, GAM Petroleum and all the traders involved in this business will be part of this international oil organizations that are regulated, and they have to be this regular checklist to make sure that they conform to these international standards and best practices. So when these things happen, internationally they're watching what is going on, thinking, what is going on there? Are this dictated by underhand corrupt, making alleging tactics or misimproprieties that are affecting these issues? And if that were the case, that has huge implications. One, the traders who go to HSBC, the traders who go to Barclays Bank, the traders who go to the Citibank to get significant monies to be able to get fuels to bring to Gambia. Those have implications in terms of the interest rates and all the others that are attached to these things. Those interest rates and everything attached to that are based on credibility, because they have to be satisfied, because these are banks, that the money they give you will be recovered, and the whole thing will be transparent. So if this kind of things happen as well, so if the interest rate were a simple 7%, it's likely to now go 10–15%. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying those are some of the implications that can have as well, never mind in the terms of reputation. So I don't know, but I think this also brings into question the role of public institutions, the role of parliament. So this PACPEC or whatever, this public accounts committee and or enterprises as well, standing committees. I don't know how many powers they have, because if this were in places like England, straight away, those responsible will be called Parliament, and they'll be completely accountable. They have to explain to MPs, they have to explain to that standing committee or select committee exactly what is going on, because the Gambian people have the right to know exactly what is going on.
And we don't know what is going on. But I also saw something on social media, the liability issue. Even looking at the numbers here, you see GAJ/GNPC, and even from the press statement yesterday, they were connecting it that like GAJ and GNPC are liable for whatever the $1 million that has been missing. But if GNPC contracted GAJ to procure fuel for them, and GAJ in the process of procuring that fuel had issues and even borrowed from the depot, and then the payment becomes an issue, how is GNPC liable for that? Can GNPC be liable for something that GAJ got into? Like they have business. GAJ was contracted by GNPC to supply them fuel. How can they be liable for that? Because Pura is making it look like GNPC is also liable in this case.
Well, in the absence of clear information, it's very hard. It creates more questions than answers. It's very difficult to understand. I know it's a very odd arrangement. Yeah. I'll just take it back to the beginning. If you if you supply fuel in Gambia, you should have bought it from one of the top 3 traders that is keeping fuel there. If they say, if they put negative next to your name in Gam Petroleum that you've taken fuel, it can only be theft. Because what we know is that players in the market that need fuel will call Atlas, will call GIA Oil and say, look, I want to buy from you 1,000 metric tons. An arrangement is made and then it's released to you. So how it's released without being recorded until it's a negative, and then how that ended up with GNPC owing, it's very embarrassing for the government, for officials that are working in these companies. So I don't want to say more because we don't have full information. But going back to your question to Abdullah also, which is what is the economic impact? And the letter you saw from Ministry of Finance saying 100% waiver. So it means that all that fuel that came and was sold in Gambia came in with 0 going to government in duties. Looking at the tax revenue that we get from fuel, I think I saw a document at one point last year that Atlas pays about $1 billion in duty every year. So you can assume that's similar for the top companies that are paying. So we get billions in duty from petrol every year, meaning when the boats offload the fuel into Gam Petroleum, no duty is paid because that fuel can be collected back by the traders and sent to Senegal or Cape Verde or Mauritania because it's a store. They're just storing it there in a bonded warehouse. But when Atlas collects fuel from Gam Petroleum and they sell it, they pay duty to the government. But if the fuel is now missing and disappeared, we can only hope that if it went to GACH, we can only hope that GACH paid duty on it. But if GACH doesn't have a single station, we can only hope that if GACH gave the fuel to GNPC, GNPC paid duty on it. We are speculating, we don't know what happened to the fuel. But what we do know is if the government says there's 15 million liters missing, no duty was paid on 15 million liters. No income was made by the companies who should have had that fuel to sell it. Then we have an emergency situation that we have to get fuel from Senegal in an urgent manner, and to keep the price low, the ministry says it's free. So if GACH returns the fuel or all these other companies return the fuel, that doesn't answer the question, and that doesn't solve the economic loss that Gambia has sustained, because it's 365 days in the year. Each day, government should be getting money for duty. If for 2 weeks Gambia had no fuel, and the fuel that was coming was duty-free from Senegal, there's 2 weeks where Gambia government did not receive duty, did not receive tax revenue. It means in this year, the appropriation bill that they had, the revenue that we expected, there's going to be a loss. So the people who did this need to also be aware that it's not just a matter of, oh, we took fuel, we didn't pay, we'll put it back. But you've caused a big loss to the country. And that really, we need to have some clear accounting. And in the end, the government has to tell us, this is who took it, this is how they took it, this is how much the market price was that was lost, this is how much they've been able to put back, but this is how much Gambia lost. And if Gam Petroleum, in the end, they have to be responsible because they allowed fuel owned by international partners to disappear. If Gam Petroleum has to pay it, where are they going to pay it from? And that's what Abdullah has explained. If Social Security has to pay it, it's coming from our pension fund. If GNPC has to pay it, we own GNPC. If Ports has to pay it, we own Ports. So we, the Gambian people, will have to pay for that missing fuel if the GACHs and the others are not able to pay for it. So this is going to be an ongoing issue until we get to the end.
And what's the role of the regulator in all of this? What role does the regulator, PURA, play in all of this?
Well, PURA is the regulator of Gam Petroleum.
Yeah.
For a long time, or up to now, Gam Petroleum has been a monopoly. It's the only depot in the country. It has a depot in Banjul and Mandinari.
Yeah.
But PURA is supposed to be receiving reports of the stock at Gam Petroleum. PURA is supposed to be making sure that it doesn't go below a certain level. But the problem we have of Gam Petroleum is that Gam Petroleum has not been licensed. They do not have a license to operate as a storage facility. Yes, so there's another depot that's being built by private sector, very close, that depot is complying with all the rules and they're getting the license and they're being regulated. Because when you build a depot, how you design it, it's fire hazard problems, storage size issues. There's so many requirements before you get a permit. Gambia Petroleum did not have that licensing process. Why? Because it's owned by government, so there's less pressure government to government to regulate. But also, and here I will speculate a little bit. If I am the general manager of Gambia Petroleum, my board of directors are directors appointed by the president, I am owned by the government. If another government body writes to me and says, do X, do Y, I can say, no, I'm not going to do it. What are you going to do? We're both public servants. And this is part of the problem. If I want to be corrupt, we are all tainted with the corruption. But these are things that are now going to come out. I know now the licensing process is in place, but the fact remains that this problem occurred at a time when Gambia Petroleum, for a long time, had refused to subject itself to scrutiny of the regulators. And now we can guess one of the reasons why was because things were happening there that they did not want the regulators to know. So hopefully now the central government should take measures to force Gambia Petroleum to subject itself to scrutiny, look at the personnel involved, because I do not see international players continuing to use Gambia as a place where they can safely store fuel without certain things changing, convincingly changing. And that's a problem for all of us. I don't think it will happen, but if, for example, if I'm a big player and I have billions of liters all over the world, I can store in Senegal, bigger depots, Cape Verde, and so on. And Gambia is such a small market. But Gambia is so risky because every time I put fuel there, I have to be sending inspectors, paying flight bills, paying hotel bills to make sure that what they're telling me is really in the tank. At some point, I might just feel, it's not worth the risk. And losing Gambia is nothing to these companies. And that's what all of us should realize.
About, yeah.
Yes. We either want to be in a situation where our local petrol station has to send a tanker truck to Senegal and come. When it's late, we sit and wait. Or we want to be a country where when we announce we have a depot, the international community is comfortable to put their fuel there so that it's right at our doorstep when we need it and we buy from them. And that's the bigger picture. So when, I did not watch the press conference fully, but if a government minister comes and tells us half a story, or doesn't tell us the full story, it's not us that they're holding information from. The rest of the world are watching.
Too,
And the next time a big company in Switzerland goes to its banker in Switzerland and part of the stock it's bringing, there's Gambia in there, they will just say, put Gambia aside, I cannot trust you. I will not use that as security. And again, it becomes another black mark on our history. So the people involved need to be aware of this dimension of things. The government regulators involved also need to be aware of it, and it's going to impact us going forward if we don't solve it. It's happened. But we need to solve it responsibly. Otherwise, we are going to be paying for it for a long time.
Yep.
Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe this is, maybe it's so up that now maybe government, everybody will take account and say, you know what, so many wrongs have happened, and we really have to get it right and make sure it is done properly. Otherwise, the consequence could be the big players removing the depots and doing it elsewhere, because probably doing it in Senegal, such a bigger market, maybe even lesser taxation and everything else. So they look at everything and thinking, mathematically, it makes sense for them to do it, deposit in Senegal or in Mali or in Cape Verde rather than Gambia. If Gambia is so small and risky and with all this, economic, socio-economic, political problems. So maybe this is a painful lesson, but an opportunity for all the relevant institutions involved to address the issue, to make sure going forward that is done properly. And it's shocking that Gambia Petroleum was operating beyond the parameters of law and not being subject to the control of PURA. It's not right.
Finally, Aziz, what's the way forward? What do you think, what's the lessons to learn here? I mean, government said they're learning lessons from this. I don't know what lessons they're learning, but do you think there's any lessons? But also, how do we, I know that the petroleum business is a lot of money, and what we have seen is interest groups right now fighting to get their people in Gamcel, because obviously the managing director is under custody, and you know he might not go back to the office. But now you see players playing in, and we just said this. As I said, what we've been saying is businessmen getting into our politics, and they're giving. We have seen Abubakar Jawara following the president around, and when you see Abubakar getting no grudges against Abubakar, but you see Abubakar getting a lot of these government contracts, and the next minute you see him on the campaign trail with the president, you get worried. And people are insinuating he's part of the people that are sponsoring. We have no issues with that, but if it's going to translate to getting government contracts, that's an issue, because that is like, you know, favoritism. So that is an issue, and we have seen a lot of that also surfacing in our politics. Are you concerned about things like that?
Obviously, I'm concerned about these things. Like I said earlier on, I mean, big business people getting into, you know, government, trying to get closer to the corridors of power. These are all ways of, you know, kind of influencing policies, kind of, you know, influencing government's decision. And then, of course, it boils down to the point that I raised earlier on. We've been having a lot of scandals in this country, and the government had never taken them seriously. Why all of a sudden, just 2 weeks before election? I mean, I like to speak from that political, you know, angle. Do you understand? Why all of a sudden 2 weeks before election, I mean, having this scandal to happen, and then three ministries for that matter, having a joint press conference on this issue. And I was like, a lot of things like this nature have happened in this country, and you know, everybody kept quiet, kept silent on them. And now we are having, you know, the government coming out. I think also the government always make calculations, political calculations. If this thing happens now, knowing the dire economic consequences, a lot of people, though a lot of voters here wouldn't be aware of these things, the consequences here and there. But then, if these things can risk the government, or can have the government risk losing the election, how about sacrificing only one individual to win elections? Do you understand? And I think that is why the government, just to paint a good image of itself out there, you know, will obviously call for a press conference and trying to, as they always say, clear the air or set the record straight. But I don't know which records are being set straight. I think they've been set wrong.
And finally, Aziz, before we let you go, are you optimistic we're going to have the outcome of the investigation? I know most of the times they say, oh, we're investigating, and at the end of the day, we don't see results of these investigations. Do you think we'll see an investigation report concerning this? I know that they have not been bailed because the amount they're asking for is really a lot of money. But do you think we'll see any investigative report?
I hope so. I think it's the first time we've seen three ministers come out to try to give us the right information. I think they have two audiences, us and the traders who bring petroleum into the country. I know they're very good people in government as well. Yeah. You know, in the Ministry of Petroleum, in Pura, at the police. It sounds like there's a lot of political interest as well, which will prevail. I hope at this time it's very clear that we need to put the right foot forward. And we're all watching. We're talking about it here, and I think they yielded to pressure. I think the powers that be maybe would have preferred this to come after election, but they had no option. They had to yield to the pressure. So I don't think they have a choice. If you'll permit me as well, I think you know, one way to stop this is government should stay out of business where there's a lot of revenue and high stakes involved. The petroleum business is fast moving. The price keeps changing every day. You have to make big procurements, millions of dollars. There are depots all over the world. Every country, every serious country has a few depots. We have actually a very small depot compared to some of the big ones in the region. There's no reason why it should be manned by public servants, owned by the government. You know, let the private sector, who can do it, bring in the right technology, bring in the right people, make the right investments, pay you tax, be responsible for any problems that are there. That way you can penalize them without having to worry. Now we are penalizing them, but we're worried about, I think you mentioned Mr. Drame may have connections, etc., etc. That wouldn't be a problem if it was just private.
Yeah.
But room for corruption arises when you have, I'm not making any accusations, but when you have, NAWEX, Gam Petroleums, GNPCs, all these are in competitive industries. And the Gamtels, Gamcels, so I look forward personally to a period where private sector will do private business, government will regulate, make sure the rules are followed. We all know which side we're on. There's no issue of corridors of power, because if NAWEC or GNPC needs a tender, it's a private arrangement, and private sector competition will win. But and I had looked forward to that in 2017 when the government changed. But continuing this cycle just creates questionable relationships, puts us in a position where we are conflicted. Now as a government, I believe they're conflicted because there are too many characters on both sides. So the incentive is there to cover up. I hope they cannot. I expect they won't. But we'll watch and see. Hopefully we don't have to talk about it again, and the next time we have a very clear report.
Thank you very much, Aziz. We'll take a first commercial break. When we come back, we'll look at the politics. Aziz doesn't do the politics, so when we come back, we'll look at the politics. But I also want to mention that GAT did issue a statement regarding their contract. They did clearly state that they went through the right processes and they were awarded in the right way, and also the money involved was a staffer who, misappropriately put the money in the wrong way, and that was their explanation, and they were the one who reported actually the case to the police. So that was a statement from GAT. So we'll take our first commercial break. When we come back, we'll look at the politics. When Aziz goes, we'll look at the politics.
December 2021, one of the Gambia's most crucial elections is here. At Fatou, we got you covered. Our team of credible and knowledgeable analysts will bring you exclusive analysis of the event step by step and ballot by ballot coverage. They'll be joined by reputable studio guests to help analyze and break down key ballot issues to meet your needs. As candidates battle for the soul of the Gambia, our team of panelists will get you the information you need to make informed choices. Join our coverage, Race for the State House, every Thursday at 6 p.m. You decide, we got you covered. Your voice, your ballot with Fatou.
You have to pay.
Look at my sleep. I think I am cheated.
Yes, you are cheated. This is not what they stated on your employment letter.
It's okay. Just give it to me. I think Fatou must explain this better.
Go and see her.
Let me go to our office now. I think I am cheated. Look at my sleep. I did not buy PE tax. Why did you deduct it from my salary?
No, Lamin. PAYE is an acronym which means pay as you earn. Employment income tax is any profit or gain arising from employment. It includes salaries, wages, bonuses, leave pay, overtime, allowances, and commissions. The employer is charged with the responsibility of deducting the tax at source and remit to GRA monthly before or on the 15th of the following month.
Really?
Yes. Any employee who earns incomes from $2,000 and above per month arising from employment in the Gambia is subjected to employment income tax.
But what if my employer deducts my salary and does not pay to GRA?
Then it means your employer is cheating on you and the government. Anytime if detected, your employer will be charged to pay the full amount, and you cannot get any document from GRA indicating your tax compliance.
Thank you very much for making me understand. I think from now on, I will be finding out with you to know whether my taxes deducted from the salary are paid to GRA or not. And I will urge every employee to do the same. Thank you very much.
This information is from the Gambia Revenue Authority. For more detailed information about your pay income tax obligations, please visit any of the nearest GIA offices. The Gambia Revenue Authority, collecting revenue for national development.
sam pap dee na déedéet daf ma yónni woon ma suyal ko bii waaw yàlla def mu gañe jàppoon $100,000 la
la ilaha illallah
te yow xam nga ne sama papa dafa amee cardiaque
yow da ngaa dof yow xam nga luy $100,000
am naa ko kay man naa lu ñëw bëggoon nga dimbali ci
demal na nga def damaa toog rek sama xel mi ne ci yow xam nga bërki démb li daal si benn waay fee waaw ma romb ko rek bërki démb waaw muy yuuxu di tëb ma ni kii lu ko dal ñu ne ma daal ci loto gaming Gambie bi la laal jar na ko laal na ci lu di
waaw nga dafa am quarté am kente am tiercé waaw maanaam nag tey jii kente bi la te jackpot bee passé xaalis
kente mooy lan
kente maanaam mooy juróomi fas yi
waaw beneen bi
am na quarté mooy ñeenti fas yi ak tiercé tey nag xaalis bi daa gën a yokk lu tax ndax jackpot bële dañ kaa tegaat ci bii maanaam juróomi fas yi boo ko jàppee ci ordre mooy risque nga désordre bi sax day fay bu ma ko jàppoon
yooyu moom noonu la demee da ngay dem rek jiyee
am na lu ma yaakaar
man gis naa seen kii yi kees yu ndaw yi ci biir dëkk bi mais daal dama ni lii moom amul xaalis da nga ciy def sa xaalis da am
jël wecce rek sànni ko fa xool jëmbat la laa ilaha illallah yow li nga wax ni tey ji bu yàlla dogaloon ma gañe ko lu mu gàtt
fi mu toll nii boo gañe woon $100,000
waaw lu may def
waaw nooy def
xam nga yow sama xarit nga
waaw
damay fexe nga rey say noonu
ci nan
lu mu gàtt $50,000
waay
Thierno woowee ambulance
lan la lu xew ni
sa baay gay dee na
sam papa gay lu ko rey
$100,000 danaa ne ko boo ma gañaloon si li ma la yónni dama ko koy jox mu daanu ni sama kaw
man waxuma ko mu waxee woon la ko noonu yow la ko waroon informer ndax yow yaa ko gañe yaa gañe jàppoon
Better and stronger as the sole ground operator at the Banjul International Airport. With an expansion in travel services, customers are assured of GIA's capacity to cater for all their travel needs, provided by professional, experienced, and ever-smiling staff. GIA's Hajj package and services, by far the best in the country, give the customers the opportunity for a memorable Hajj experience. For a more efficient cargo services, GIA means business as it launches its new multi-million-dollar ultra-modern cargo complex to revitalize and stimulate air transport. GIA, the pride of the Gambia.
Gamcel data, now even better. Enjoy 20% extra data on all Gamcel data bundles. Buy 20 megabytes and get extra 4 megabytes. Buy 50 megabytes and get extra 10 megabytes. Buy 100 megabytes and get extra 20 megabytes. Any amount of Gamcel data bundle you buy, you will receive 20% extra data for free. Dial *302* data amount hash or go to your EJA menu and choose your data bundle now. Gamcel data, it's fast, lasts longer and very reliable. Gamcel EJA
December 2021, one of the Gambia's most crucial elections is here. At Fatou, we got you covered. Our team of credible and knowledgeable analysts will bring you exclusive analysis of the event step by step and ballot by ballot coverage. They'll be joined by reputable studio guests to help analyze and break down key ballot issues to meet your needs. As candidates battle for the soul of the Gambia, our team of panelists will get you the information you need to make informed choices. Join our coverage, Race for the State House, every Thursday at 6 p.m. You decide, we got you covered.
Things have started. President Barrow crossed over this weekend. He was in North Bank, he was in URR. now he's along the way to Sierra. Dabo went to North Bank. He is now in URR. ESA went to North Bank, and I think he went to URR. He's around. Yeah, he's now in Sierra. And URR, yeah. And NUP Abdullah Jame is in the Woolies, and Mama Kande is around the Salums right now. Halifa Saleh is in North Bank. Everyone is crisscrossing the country. What have you observed so far in the campaign trail?
Okay, thank you very much, Fatou. I think I'll bring it down to what I said here the last time. At least with the eliminations that we had, now we can focus. At least we can follow onto some of these discussions and see the trends that we are seeing. I won't tire to say this here, the focus on policies. Like, are we steering our democracy into the standards that we've been looking forward to? And I think we're still, for lack of a better, still stagnant in some way, looking at some of these road promises, building of certain infrastructures. We've had agendas where they would say that where we will stop rice importation, for instance. How do we stop rice importations when we know? I say that sometimes it's good to address some of these things that are being interlinked. For instance, I'll just take one example of saying in 5 years' time, we will build Jahali Pacha, have our youth there. And are you dealing with youth and unemployment? Are you dealing with rural-urban migration? Do you understand the point I'm making? So to say that what is driving these youth away from Jahali Pacha, away from CRR, away from Basse, are there mechanisms in place to draw them back to some of these places? So I think for me, what I've seen, I'm not going against anyone. It is a campaign. Like I said here, campaign political communication is about informing and it's about persuasion. The focus on the persuasion, just focusing on getting votes, right? Trying to, and the personal attacks, trying to get back to the other person, because you have sort of gyrating the crowd, okay? So the crowd politics is still what is driving some of these candidates, and then we see some of them feeding off some of these things, like if they make substandard statements, having an incumbent president talk about tear gassing people and all of that, and then people laughing, him laughing and
saying Baroya Bari Dole.
Yeah, Baroya, like Dole, that fighting of Dole, that intimidation we got from our RAS regime, paske daf ñu jaay Dole, is what we are trying to move on. So if you're coming to make certain statements, and then Dabo attacking back with saying that, okay, so we've seen the Human Rights Commission to come and say that some of these statements should not be allowed. Last week we were here, and I think ESA left where they signed that TOR to say that. And then before he even finished, Fatou raised concern about the implementation of some of those things, right? Having these documents gathering dust there, and having them making, just first week of campaign, we're having a National Human Rights Commission raising concerns about the statements that, I will not focus on the promises they're making. We're 52 years old, 50 odd years old as a country. These are the same things we've been hearing. I've been talking about moving forward. I've been talking about informing the electorate on how you go about them. So, and then there's one thing I just hope that, well, not very optimistic about seeing a shift in their political communication, but then I just hope that they understand with the kind of people they're communicating with. Yes, and when you look at crowd politics, Fatou, it's, you have sort of three types of people following you. You have your party militants, you have your supporters, and you have like your sympathizers. You can have your militants who are there with the commitment, personal level, like you can have discussions with them, discuss your agendas and all of that. There are certain statements you can make to those people and take back. There are certain statements that they could not misconstrue. But when you're talking to a population where we have education level below international standards, you have to be very careful with some of the statements that you're making. If you're talking as an incumbent, making tear gassing protesters okay, right? It makes dictatorship or using that dole okay. People seeing as if you do this wrong, the president, Abe Busala. Do you get the point that I'm
Instead
making?
of the law,
instead of the law.
Yeah.
So they should be very, very mindful of the people they're talking to. These are not just militants who have gone through with you, with your agendas, with your policies. These are people who are just supporting on other bases. So when they follow the crowds and you're saying that, was it like I will bury a party if I win, like that? If you look at those things and scrutinize them, they could quantify to hate speech. You are igniting something in this country. And just because you made that statement, we didn't have an uproar, is problematic. Just because you make that statement and 2 days later we don't see violence doesn't mean it's okay. Political violence could be built from these things. These are things people keep at the back of their minds. And we should understand that when we talk about political violence, it's not what we've seen in Sierra Leone or Liberia or Kenya in 2007. Sometimes it's the intimidation. It qualifies as political violence. It's the harassment. So you talk about saying the UDP badelale. Do you understand? We will bury UDP. At the end of the day, it's UDP supporters, NPP supporters, GDC supporters that live in these neighborhoods. If you win, they have that at the back of your mind, that they're nothing here. You've made it okay to intimidate them, to harass them, and this is what will lead to the combination of different things that could lead to. So I can't tire saying this, that they have to watch what they say and put into consideration the kinds of people that they follow. The promises we've had them,
and we'll figure out which is true and which is not.
Definitely.
But ASAP, having the incumbent say statements, make statements like this, that was, I think, upsetting to all of us, every Gambian. Protesters saying, I mean, the government was saying that it was the protesters who caused the chaos when at the 3 years Jotna protest. Now the president is coming, now for security and ni fengo ni kelo fanga kaka borile. Ni ban 3 years Jotna mo ni ban juno mo ni borole kata. Kabiringa gaso fayika. Hearing the president himself say that.
Well, shocking but not surprising.
Not surprising?
Yeah, not surprising that it came from him. Knowing the type of person, the type of leader that we have. I want to say this, let me probably use wear my activist lens. As somebody who, stand in solidarity with victims of 22 years of brutality in this country.
Yeah.
Somebody who, stand in solidarity with people that continue to struggle on a daily basis to consolidate our democratic gains. With that activist lens, I will say that I think we have, unapologetically, I will say that we have a president who needs some level of moral therapy, in the sense that here is a leader who knew or who knows very well the situation that we came from. Having him to utter such statements, one, it is sad that in the 21st century, Gambia is having such a leader who can stand in public and utter such statement, which is a threat to human rights, but also, explains the type of leader that we have who does not understand issues. I mean, making such statement itself is implicating. Yeah. That tomorrow, if there is to be an investigation or whatever, you've already implicated yourself by saying that, when you throw tear gas at them, I mean, that's your own statement.
Yeah.
And you say this public, and then laugh about it, and then people there laugh about it. It reminded me of Jammeh in 2016 when he insulted the Mandinkas, and the people there were laughing. Here is the thing. Jammeh was not laughing there, at least. It was the people there who were laughing. But here you had the president and the people there who were laughing, and all of a sudden when they started saying, yeah, Barry Dole, and then he was making his laugh like this. So it shows that we have a mini dictator, a dictator that we are grooming, and we should be cautious of this. This is not the first time. I think, the last statement that he made regarding banning political activities, civil society came out. For instance, my own organization issued a statement to say that that's going to be a threat to fundamental rights and freedoms in the Gambia, and then people take it to be normal. But like Halima said, I want to emphasize on that. Just there I was having a conversation with somebody, I made mention of this. I said, you see, these are statements, especially the history that we have, where we just came from, dictatorship. Gambians don't want to go back to that anymore. That is why whenever even Yahya Jammeh speaks, people are terrified a bit. because of the trauma that we have for the past 22 years. Now, if we're seeing a leader taking the same line, taking the same approach, what we have at the back of our mind is that, if he should also win, then it means like we're going back to the same thing. He will start jumping on people. And this is mostly what leads to, post-election violence, because when the opposition know that, because if you threaten them, that will bury you. Like Jame said, I'm going to bury Mandinka's 9 feet. What did they do? They voted against him. So if you are telling us that you will bury UDP, another party, when they said, okay, if he wins, then it means we are done. So in that situation, that is where when elections are held, even if you win as an incumbent, the opposition feel like, look, our security is not guaranteed here. They're going to reject the results. And that is what leads to post-election violence. Do you understand my point? So these are things that we should not take for granted. I mean, our politicians, especially the incumbent, I think all these jabs, sorry for my words, are coming from him mostly.
Yeah.
And that is why the Human Rights Commission had to issue a statement, especially him, and of course Dabo responding to him. Dabo responding to him that we will destroy you. Yes, it's also a threat. You understand? But then, that's about an individual, that the president himself. But then the president saying tear gas, it's about a whole group of people whose right has been violated. They have a fundamental right to freedom of expression. And their right has been violated. All that you do as a president is to come and, joke about that. Like I said, he needs some moral therapy for the fact that here is a man who also, issued a warning to
Mama Kande.
To Mama Kande. I mean, the reason why I said he needs moral therapy is that just 2 months ago or so, you went to bed with the party of the same Yaya Jammeh. You visited his close family in Kanilai. You also said these moves were done in the spirit of reconciliation, national unity, and peace. If Jammeh had endorsed the APRC-NPP alliance, Barrow would have allowed Jammeh to speak at his rallies.
Yes.
Without uttering a step, without saying anything. Jammeh attacked the Mandinkas at UDP 2 weeks ago. There was no statement from the government. Barrow did not say anything.
No.
But because this past statement was directed at him, now he had the audacity to come and tell Mama Kande not to allow Jammeh to speak in his rallies. And I'm like, what is wrong with this man leading us in this 21st century? Is he suffering from, I don't know, I mean, what is wrong with him? Now, because you yourself, are you in any moral position to talk about Jammeh? In fact, what are you asking the IEC to intervene? It shows his level of understanding again. What will the IEC do about that? If you maybe say the police, I can understand. What will the IEC do about that? Will the IEC come and say, yeah, Jammeh, don't talk here when he's talking at their rallies? So, I mean, get back to the point of the type of leadership we have in this question. Leaders or politicians who are engaged in attacking personality instead of talking about issues. We are having this fuel shortage crisis here. We're having this big corruption scandal that we talk about here. What is Barrow telling Gambians in solving the corruption in this country? Many a times I say, and I want to repeat this, you see, we cannot be holding opposition to account the way we hold the incumbent to account. Definitely. And this is what people don't understand. They think we are just, too much on demand. But no, these people are not in office. They are not managing our resources. They are not the ones in office. Wait for a Doi government or a CA government or a Mama Kande government or a Dabo government and see whether if they are doing this, we will not do the same. But here is the man who is the leader. He is the one to set examples. Now, if he is going astray, and we want to talk about that, people think that we are too much on him when we are holding him to account only. He is the one there, and he should be setting examples. I think even the National Human Rights Commission, if you look at it technically, the statement itself, it shows that they are so disturbed with his statement. They just have to bring in Dabo's own. But if you look at the gravity of the statement, just to balance it.
But if you look at the, I mean,
exactly, it seems so. It's so problematic. It's so disturbing having the health situation of this country. Education standard, living standard of people, the transportation system. Gambia is, like SFL said, I mean, Gambia is the worst country to do business apart from Chad. Do you understand? This country is just stagnant, not moving at all. Nothing is working in this country. And all that we see the incumbent bragging about is one or two roads and 1 or 2 bridges out there. And then people think that this is development. At the end of the day, it's about this man. What is he telling us about these pressing issues that we are facing in this country? How do you address that? I can say majority, the greater part of his campaign has been just Dabo and UDP. We're just sick and tired of hearing all the meetings that he had. He must mention Dabo and UDP.
And that makes, for me, that brings the question, what is the agenda?
What is the agenda?
Is the agenda UDP and Dabo and SFL? Now I have seen them attacking SFL as well. It seems like they're attacking people that they see.
Yeah, I think SR's own, like I told somebody today, you see, I think last week I mentioned here, that's what we call the spoiler effect in elections. SR's coming, probably the incumbent is seeing it as a threat. I mean, to take votes from the incumbent. As a result, they're looking for all ways of damaging him. We have had stories where his campaign team was, intercepted. I don't know, somebody was following them. And also in Basse, they had issues with lodge, when they go, when they went to certain place, already the NPP guys have booked all the lodges. So when these people came, they could not find anywhere to sleep. We have also heard what happened at the nomination and all that. Because I think they see him as a threat, somebody who is coming to spoil it for them, trying to take votes from them, just like Mama Kande did in 2016 for Jammeh. I think they see SR from that perspective, and that is why they're doing everything fast. But like I said, it should be issue voting in this country, and I said it here. I doubt whether in fact, it will not be. Gambians will not vote on issue in 2021, maybe 2026, maybe beyond that. But then it's so sickening and tiring that we're seeing the same thing going on. Character assassination, personal attacks, especially coming more from the incumbent, instead of talking on issues and policies and programs.
Abdullah, when you hear President Barrow say Jammeh should not speak in rallies, when just 3 months ago he said Jammeh bunyumbangu dingoleti natala dimbayale jube ka telo mobile president, and today he's saying Jammeh should not speak. Ako Jammeh asylum le, but he didn't say that 2 months ago. I mean, people think we are hard on President Barrow, and I say this, look, President Barrow kana namo joatelea. If we pay our namo to Dabo, you will hear us. If we pay to Halifa Saleh, you will hear from us. But we are paying our taxes to President Barrow. He's the one we are paying at the State House, #1 Marina Parade. We are going to go after him on everything that he does. When he speaks, that's why Mama Kande, somebody said, in our comment, somebody said, when you follow Kordako ni Alpha Mingeka blow noma. We cannot blame Mama Kande Barrow singole noma. And that's exactly what happens. When you hear him say stuff like that to Kande, and Kande said Thursday, today, Jammeh will speak. Now come and arrest me. That's what Kande says.
Yeah, Barrow is the president and the commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
He's even commander-in-chief of the Gambia Armed Forces. So he was elected by the Gambian people, so he's elected, and therefore we should hold him accountable.
Yeah.
But in relation to Mama Kande and the Yajame issue, it is very sad and unfortunate that in 2 weeks before the election, that Yaya Jammeh, like the APRC, remain relevant in our political discourse. That is really worrying and disturbing because on the 2nd of December 2016, when the results were, we all assumed that was the end of the APRC and Yaya Jammeh. But shortly afterwards, because when before the fragmentation of the coalition, that was the case. But over time, because of partisan politics, because of political interest, Yaya Jammeh started surfacing. So in isolated incidences, so when they held, when the Freest Jotna went out, they also did a rally in support of Yaya Jammeh, something along those lines. And they were given a permit. They're entitled to a permit, but the message was to try and distort what the Freest Jotna people were advocating. And I think Barrow would have been happy for that, because the crescendo was coming. So more recently, because of the fragility of this election, because we know it's going to be very close, because of the risk of Barrow not having enough numbers to win, he made this political decision that if I get the APRC on my side, if I get that core APRC support, I may just cross the line. And therefore, what did he do? He went to bed with the APRC. This is when people like Fabakary Tombong and Rambo Jat and the others were whining and dining at the State House. So they came out with this MOU, and a week later also, Barrow never visited the victim center. Barrow never issued a statement after the serious revelations from TRRC to reassure Gambian victims and the Gambian population that the TRRC and the TRRC recommendations, findings and recommendations will be implemented and be given the credibility, well, the kind of attention that it requires. None of that happened. A week later, Jammeh flip-flopped him. The relationship is no longer there in terms of getting the Jammeh endorsement. Do
you think Jammeh even spoke to Barrow before the endorsement? I mean, I cannot imagine Jammeh speaking to Barrow and then just changing like that in a minute.
But the whole thing as well, this is even more serious than that. But I'll come back to, so Jammeh decided to now endorse Ganu, and a few days later, Jammeh is you know, his madness is just being revealed more and more. So Barrow now, the fact that Jammeh is now given a platform by another political party to spew. So whatever Jammeh is saying, I condemn completely, because all he's saying is really dangerous political rhetoric, inciting violence, inciting ethnic tensions and ethnic divisions, trying to further disintegrate and fragment our already polarized society. That is exactly what he's trying to do. But that is in the best interest of Jammeh. Politically, it is important for him to further create the wedge between the Mandinkas and the Wolof, between the Mandinkas and the Followers, and all the rest of it. That is in his best interest, because the more you fragment, the lesser the chance for perhaps, you know, his biggest enemy has been the UDP to win, or whoever. But let's go back to how, you know, when the TRRC, back in August, when the TRRC were August or September, when the TRRC were finalizing its report to submit in September, that was subsequently cancelled. Arrangements were made to rename Arch 22 Victims Square or Victim Center, something along those lines. And from my understanding, there were discussions behind closed doors and agreements were made. But because of Barrow's political interest, this is at the time when the relationship with the APRC was being formalized in terms of signing the MOU. So therefore, it was no longer in his interest to even allow the TRRC to go ahead and rename H22. So that just goes to show you one side of him. But more importantly, during that time, I think a week or so before the TRRC was supposed to submit its report, some elements of the APRC from H22 marched to the Attorney General's chambers with a petition telling the Gambia government, telling the Attorney General, the chief legal advisor to government, that the TRRC report should be binned. Okay? The most important public inquiry in our history in terms of serious human rights abuses and violations. But you've got people who are aligned to the perpetrator telling our government, telling our Attorney General, okay, who set up the TRRC, and they accepted that envelope. Okay, so now all of that will be, and Maro believes that now he's got the moral compass to tell the Gambian people, or to tell another political party that they do not need, they should not associate with what is happening with Jammeh being relevant and spin his rhetoric is bad for our politics. And Mama Kande, in my estimation, is significantly lowered for going to bed with the APRC, because I don't think anybody who cares about the best interest of the Gambian people, the best interest of our future, the best interest of victims, should have the remotest connection with the APRC. But because he's also desperate to win, and he's doing that, and we have to quote all of them for the hypocrisies and what they're doing. That is the truth, and we have to say it. So Barrow, this just reveals the kind of person he is. This is the kind of person who changes colors at any time that it suits his political considerations and motivations. Again, if Jammeh came out and said anything that was beneficial to him, he would say something to kind of endorse that statement. But because obviously, so that just kind of reveals the kind of, but it is dangerous. It is dangerous what is going on right now, you know, in terms of, you know, not danger, but what the nonsense Jammeh is saying, but Barrow, as the commander-in-chief, as the president of this country, post a dictatorship, I think kind of galvanized the APRC and gave them the platform and the political currency that he was seeking to be relevant. And we are talking about him right now, and part of that blame has to be laid to Barrow, because he had an opportunity to cross, and Yahya Jammeh would have remained irrelevant in our conversation, but he's remaining relevant because our commander-in-chief has given that platform and relevance.
Yeah. If I could just come in with regards to certain statements that are made, that Barrow being the first person to go to the phone is assuring that, and that even that I have a problem to try to centralize the issue of reconciliation on Jammeh coming back. That if we want to ensure reconciliation, him as a citizen should be allowed back here and all of. But what I want to focus on it, I think he pointed it out that yes, we're talking about Barrow setting the precedents when it comes to making Jammeh relevant. For me, I don't agree with that statement that says that if he's doing it, it's okay for Mama Kandeh to do it. What I've been saying is Barrow is sort of steering or this campaign into very substandard campaign political discourse. So I think the onus lies on the others as well. Yes, jabs will be thrown in and here, but to be selective on what things to respond to. In that way, they would be able to also direct, but then that also begs the question of people like Mama Kandeh, what is their motive in seeking this country? Like if you ask me, it would take me time to figure out Mama Kandeh's national development agendas and all, because he plays along those lines. So I just wanted to point that out, that because, yes, we should talk about the president making, but just because the incumbent makes certain statements, it does not make it okay. So I think this onus lies on to change that narrative a bit. Like when we say, yes, we would have people voting along edit lines and all of that 21, but certain things, when they prop up, we nip them at the butt. Yeah. When we see that the human rights standards of this country it's at stake, like it's just being played with, like I think it lies on them, not just as candidates, but as citizens of this country, to ensure that this is not okay. We have a country that's still healing from the atrocities that were revealed under the TRRC. If you want to get back at Barrow, don't attack Barrow personally, but bring those things out that we're still healing. He never stood by the victims. He never made any statements. His only public appearance or statements we've seen him regarding the TRRC was going to the Phonies to talk about reconciliation being Jammeh coming back, instead of talking about, we've done the truth bit, but then reconciliation is about ensuring that this report is implemented. And even if we have to consolidate some of these things, but we will ensure that justice is up. So the onus lies on them on the firing back. Sometimes they have to stop, rethink about the things that they respond to. November 20th is coming. I hear there's a proposed debate. 3 have confirmed. I don't know if that's confirmed. He has not confirmed yet. If he's not showing up to these podiums, like where things would be up to standard for him to answer questions, then you have your political campaign trails where when he talks about or plays with human rights issues, you stand there, not fire back at Barrow as a person, but ensure that as a country that's still healing, we cannot go back to things like this.
Just to add on to that, especially with regards to the victims, I think clearly, the only time Barrow met the victims of Jammeh atrocities, it was once. This was when the German president was to come to the Gambia. Knowing fully well that the German president, because a lot of people might not know this, when we say Barrow never met victims of Jammeh atrocities, some people cannot just imagine this. But the only time he met them was when the German president was to come, and he was to meet the victims, knowing fully well that, if a guest will come from outside and meet these victims and realize that, in fact, the president for 5 years has never met these victims, it will just be so shocking and surprising. So he decided to arrange within, 2 days to meet the victims. And when the victims met him, explaining everything, talking for more than 30 minutes, and then all he had to say is that, we are all victims of this, we are all victims, so we will see how best to reconcile. And that was it. So it shows the insensitive nature of the leadership that we have in this country. It is sad. I mean, so at the end of the day, you think how are Gambians, going to hold him accountable for the past 5 years? I've said this somewhere, that 5 years of Barrow's presidency has been a waste in terms of addressing the basic problems that we face in this country, especially the agenda or the objective why he was voted in 2017. That is to embark on reforms. What has he done? And that is why I ask people, let's hold him to account. What has he done in terms of reforms? What happened to the CRC? What happened to the SSR? What happened to the GIA Commission? What is happening to the TRRC, which I think I can safely say that the TRRC, as far as Barrow's presidency is concerned, is a complete failure. What happened to the civil service reform? What happened to all these reforms that the Barrow had promised us? What happened to the 3 years? What happened to now he's running for another term, thinking of securing another term? I mean, can't we hold this man to account for the past 5 years? Then it comes back to the question of people like Mama, like you said. You see, like Halima said, we cannot encourage or endorse Mama's action in going to bed with APRC just because Barrow did the same. Like Fatou said, they are both wrong. I mean, they don't deserve, they are not in any moral authority or any moral position to speak to Gambians. Very insensitive to the plight of the victims. And, so when we get to scrutinizing Mama as a presidential candidate, then...
Let's do that now. Yeah. Let's do Mama and then we'll go to Halifa quickly. Yeah. Mama Kande, what do you think is his agenda? What is he telling the electorates right now?
Yeah, I mean, we did with Dabo, when I want to make an assessment of these politicians, I want to start from their political career. I don't know Mama much at the time when he was serving as a parliamentarian. Then I can say I was a kid. But then, knowing that he started as a parliamentarian, of course, he defeated Barrow in
they defeated him twice, actually.
Exactly. So knowing him as a parliamentarian, serving under the APRC, I was also told that he was a bit critical of the APRC even in Parliament. Yeah. If you go back to the records, they tell you, which was good. And then having to form his own political party was also a blessing in disguise, especially for the opposition in 2016. We were able to defeat him. Yeah. Seeing that he is that politician who has been critical of the APRC, the party that he was serving in Parliament, I mean, and on his big ticket. But then coming to Mama, getting to the presidential race when it comes to agenda, what exactly he has. The surprise and the shocking thing to me was him going to bed with APRC. I think holding Barrow to account to say that Barrow was even, did a blunder, I mean, a political miscalculation, or insensitive to the victims by forming an alliance with the APRC, then having Mama to form an alliance with the breakaway APRC is also having some moral problems. Do you understand? Some moral issues. Is he also sensitive to the plight of the victims?
But if you look at Mama though, Mama has been consistent when it comes to the JAME issue. From day one, he has always said when he is in government, he was going to bring JAME, give him amnesty. Yeah. Mama has always said this. From day one, he has always said this. This has been his statement. Even when he said it and people criticized, he kept to that. He said, look, I know people are complaining, we'll have issues to say about this, but this is my position. JAME is an elderly, he was a former president, I'll give him amnesty and he will come back. This has always been
that's what I'm saying. So having him in the race again for 2021, I mean, Gambians will have to see, is he to be trusted, just like Barrow? Because having someone who is telling us at the moment, Gambians want to reconcile, fine. But Gambians want healing. Gambians want justice, okay? At the end of the day, having a presidential candidate who is telling us outright that if he comes to power, he is going to reconcile by... You see, Gambians reconciling is not about Yaya Jammeh coming. Do you understand? This, the problem is not Yaya Jammeh alone. It's about what happened in this country. And Jammeh was not the only one who committed these things. And no one can even hold Jammeh account and say, you were the one who killed this one. Yeah. Do you understand? He was not present in most of these things. He did not do anything. Just that he was giving orders as the villa.
That is not a just.
Well, okay, not just.
When you have an entire state machinery to entrench your dictatorship, when you have the junglers and the NIA at your disposal to disappear people, to kill people, to maim people at will,
I wouldn't say just. I will withdraw that statement. But, you know, having him not the only one, you know, people were working from, there are people who committed atrocities in this country, and they're still in the system, especially when it comes to the security. That is why the SSR, I will say here, on record, that is a complete failure. And I can justify that anywhere. Even though sometimes when you engage some security personnel, they will tell you that when security sector reform is on, you know, it's not something that it's easy. That, and yeah, I know security sector reform doesn't end in 5 years or 10. In fact, it doesn't end. It continues. But it shows the type of government that we have that is insensitive. So having Mama Kande too, just like Halima said, I'm just confused about his day. Because Mama, listening to Mama, do I even hear Mama talking about policies, programs? All that these politicians do mostly is to tell us that, tell women, I'll fix your garden for you. I'll build borehole for you. I'll build this for you. What strategies? How do you want to transform the education system of this country? And how are you going to do it? It's important for people to be asking questions to these politicians. How do you do this? If Dabo stands and tells us that I will do this, that, and that, and that for our health care sector, ask him, Mr. Dabo, how will you do this? Where will you get the money? If Mama said the same, how will you do this? If Khalifa said the same, how will you do this? This is the question that we are interested in. Having to assess him, I'm just confused, you know, as to what policies and programs he has, especially with regards to the victims. But I think also, you know, just like I said earlier on here, you know, having to compare all these candidates to the incumbent, I think I might be naive in my judgment, but I think all of them, including Mama, is more competent than the incumbent.
But you're very right. Mama has been very consistent in when it comes to Yaya Jammeh.
Yeah.
Whether he has a soft spot for Yaya Jammeh or because of their previous APRC.
Yeah.
But you do not see him come out to radically condemn Yaya Jammeh. So he's been consistent in that.
Yeah.
His condemnations have been very subtle.
Yeah.
Secondly, I have never really seen him release a statement directly responding to the plight of victims, despite the revelations coming out of the TRRC. And I think that is very deliberate and strategic. It is as if Mama Kende knew come 2021 December election, I would need pockets of the APRC vote. And in order to pander to that APRC constituency, it is important that he doesn't strain and sever that relationship or those ties. Because remember, he was previously APRC. So from 1994 to December 2016, the horrendous journey that this country went through in terms of the brutality that Yaya Jammeh visited on the Gambian people, how the NIA as an institution was used, how the army, the police, and the entire security apparatus. It is almost as if post-Hitler, you have a German political leader aligning itself with the Nazi regime. Okay, it is morally wrong in every way you look at it. Individual APRC supporters are Gambians like you and I who have the right to participate in our elections the way they wish. So if an individual APRC supporter wants to go and join the SRFAL team, come to vote or die or whoever, that is their right. But to align yourself with the party as an institution, the party that is still headed, because in Equatorial Guinea, but still being relevant, hence you are inviting him to speak within the platform of the APRC. I think that is wrong. And what that reveals again is about the personality of the person that we're dealing with. Is this the sort of person who will transform Gambia, or is this the sort of person who is more concerned with getting to power? So when it comes to Mama Kande, I am at pains to I know that goes, you know, for most of this because we are less on policies but more on the gravitas and stuff like that. But for Mama Kande, I am at pains to really point to programs and policies that is saying that this is what I intend to do. So it's almost like he's a very good populist politician. If he knows that making these remarks and stuff like that will galvanize a certain kind of population, so whether this will be a certain kind of population or region or country that are more likely to vote for me and stuff like that. So it calls into question the seriousness and the sincerity of this kind of politicians. And if I am being frank, I think he's more capable than Barrow, but I don't think it's comparing apples and oranges. I don't think there is a significant difference, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I will take it off from there. That's not enough for me as well. If he's more competent than Barrow, there's not much of a gap. And I think I just go with them. Like, who is Mama Kande as a party leader, as a politician? The most significant thing we could look at him as a politician or as a party leader is his association with Jammeh. And that's what we will take it down to, because he claims he's been consistent. That's the only thing we've seen him being consistent. So we would
being a philanthropist.
Yeah. So we will bring his political thing down to that message. And I think I have a problem with that, looking at this country's human rights records, and to see that even after Jammeh, we've seen a boost in tourism, we've seen a boost in international aid, even though we have questions about it and all of that. Our bilateral ties, rebuilding them, shows a lot about human rights record, our international human. So to have a presidential candidate who just says that, because Jammeh's amnesty or not giving in amnesty embodies a lot of things. It embodies a lot of things. It's not just about the immunity of a former president. It's about the institutionalization of torture. It's about building our security sector on using torture to work with the different sectors.
Sexual and gender-based violence.
Sexual and gender-based violence. We've seen under the TRRC that these are deep-rooted issues. And because Jammeh left does not mean they have been addressed or they have been curbed. So saying that you cannot bring our human rights records, or you cannot bring in how Gambia stands in international human rights standards down to granting amnesty to a former president who has, like Fatou told us, that that's not a just, where people use torture and other forms of intimidation, right, as political tools, as personal tools, corruption and all of. So Jammeh's amnesty embodies a lot of legal questions, a lot of political questions, socio-economic questions, having Jammeh back here. So for a man who's, like we are talking here, people are not certain, the uncertainties surrounding his political motive.
Internationally, I mean, looking at all these things that are happening, the incumbent going to bed with APRC, you know, having another opposition leader going into bed with the fragmented APRC.
Yeah.
What do you think will be the implications internationally? Looking at all the institutions, the donors that have been pumping in a lot of money to our reforms and all that, thinking that, well, if the incumbent wins, it's like what we have been trying to address is the same thing that is happening. If another opposition wins, it's like they're getting us back to that.
Definitely going
Especially
to make
considering
them
that the TRRC has been funded by the international community.
And that is why I say, and I think the thing is, sometimes we need to understand the basics of human rights protection at the international level. The three main things, that it's not just about protecting, signing all these treaties. It comes, yes, it's about protecting, it's about respecting them, first of all. You consider these rights, but it's also about protecting, and it's also main thing is where the state's obligations will come in, putting in, fulfilling them. And in fulfilling them, the TRRC is central to that, right? And you know that when these international bodies come in, when they tell their people it's okay for a country that is, our economy is very much based on tourism, because our human rights records hopes of improvements of international human rights standard, we've seen a boost in that sector. We've seen people, diaspora, very important, willing to come back home, because Gambians, we were, I think, next to Cape Verde with brain drain. People, because we feel like there's about to be an environment where international standards, where you will not be intimidated just because you've made a statement, or just because you have a certain amount of money in your account, the NIA would just walk into your house because they question that. They have control over the central bank. They know your in and outs of this. So All of that, the international bodies are watching. How is Gambia fulfilling, not just being signatory, but how is Gambia fulfilling? So having people like him to say we will grant amnesty without addressing all of these key issues regarding Jammeh's return.
And in fact, just yesterday, Amnesty International issued a statement, saying that the top priority of the next government, whether it's going to be Barrow continuing or another government coming, should be human rights, respect for human rights. And always, I do hear people say, sometimes when these international bodies or donors come in to make certain statements, people say, well, this is our internal affairs, we are a sovereign state. Look,
when it comes to funds,
exactly,
we rely on them. But
when the draft constitution was rejected, in fact, when the debate was going on before being rejected, I think the U.S. Embassy or the British Embassy, Germany and the EU made a joint statement asking parliamentarians to give this constitution a chance. And then all of a sudden we have revolutionaries fighting, jumping and saying, we are a sovereign state. I said we should be ashamed of ourselves. Sovereign, these are the people, the very CRC, the very document that you are debating today, they are the people who funded these things. The TRRC, they funded it. All your reform programs, if you don't want them to interfere, to put their mouth in your issue, why are you receiving funding from them? You're begging them every day, and you're telling them that this is your internal affair. So I think as a country, 56 years of independence, you see, no country can work as an island. And even sovereignty that we talk about, there are limitations to sovereignty. Once you accept to be part of international bodies, you want to deal with other countries outside, you must be willing to surrender part of your sovereignty. This is to subject yourself to scrutiny, especially when it comes to respecting fundamental rights and freedoms in line with international standards. She made mention of that. It's not only about protecting, but also it's about promoting, and fundamentally it's about fulfilling rights and freedoms that are guaranteed not only by the Constitution, but international human rights instruments.
Now finally, before we go, let's look at Halifa Sallah. I have said this, Halifa would have been one of the best presidents this country would have had if elected. But I've always said this to him, why is the Gambians not still understanding the DOI message? Is it a messaging issue or is it the personal issue? I don't even know what's the problem when it comes to DOI. A lot of people say, Halifa Sallah, bilay suñ ko amé president, Halifa limo wax, Halifa dama ko dé bëgg déglu suma ko déglu. But it doesn't translate to votes. Are we going to see a change in 2021? Halifa Sallah.
Halifa, I think really an incredible person. But why is DOI not electable?
Yeah.
It's a very relevant question. See, politics evolves, and politics is about building a relationship with the voter, being able to communicate with the voter. Those who are able to communicate better with the electorate. So let us go back to Obama in 2007, 2008. Simple phrase, yes, we can.
Yeah.
But it resonated. Yes, we can became like an anthem. Okay, so wherever he went. So in this day and age, but even previously, in this day and age, you have to be able to relate to the electorate. You have to be able to speak their language and speak to them in a language that they can understand. I think DOI from the late 1980s, when DOI started, even at the time, this is during when you had the Cold War disturbing the transatlantic relationship between Europe and America. But even within that context, the idea of socialism had its problems. So you come to a poor country like Gambia, considering the global, the intricacies, and you want to bring the message of socialism, which even the Europeans had some problems, significant problems with, and you want to bring that to a third world country, and you think they will understand the message. So that's one part. But the second part as well, you're trying to explain to this woman or man or this fisherman or gardener, whoever in Sarebojo, that you should be entrusted with responsibility to manage the coffers of this country. But you explain that whole phenomenon in a way that they cannot understand. they cannot relate to you, and that has been another. So what DOI has not done in a long time is they've been almost stagnant in the way they message politically with the Gambian people. And I'm going to go in a bit of a thing, but when Margaret Thatcher came to power, I think 1979 or something along those sorts, for a long time, everybody thought that the Labour Party in the UK was going to be completely unelectable, because the Labour Party then, DOI as well. For example, the Labour Party is like the working people, the poor people's party as well. So all these policies that they had, you tax big corporate stuff like that. But the people simply looked at them, and that's why they lost consecutive elections. Even the idea they will never be electable as well. Tony Blair came and became the most successful Labour leader. But why was he successful? He was successful because that for a long time our message failed. Yeah. And therefore we have to now speak the language that the people can understand. And he brought somebody like Peter Mandelson, okay, who was able to, and the reason why I'm saying Tony Blair's own wife, a lawyer, sometimes wrote some of these political messages, but it will come to the office and they will look at it and thinking, this is too legal, this is too dry, okay? Somebody like Peter Mandelson and some of the other strategists will look at this and disseminate this information in a way that ordinary farmer in Cumbria or somewhere can understand. And that was why they were able to get Tony Blair not only elected, but to win landslides and 4 successful elections as well. So the trick is, if this is not working, change it. Change it. Yeah. So I think that has been the problem for, it's not the message per se, but how the message is transmitted to the Gambian people. Yeah. So the way you communicate, if there's something wrong with that, then try and, so it's not the only thing as well. But if you look at this 21st century, people want leaders like, again, people like Obama, people like Tony Blair. So I may be the most eloquent politician, the speaker, blah, 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 I go to these villages, and they look at me. Gambian people, if you look at our context amongst a bottle, okay? Yeah. But I don't think DOI has meant to grasp some of these ideologies, okay? But fair enough, because they don't want to be popular, they want to stick to their ideologies. Fair enough for them. Yeah. But those ideologies simply cannot work in terms of the Gambian, because even intellectuals sometimes would say, it's a little bit, so it's again thing. So when you go to Sarebojo or Badibu Kerawan or somewhere like that, and the meeting is held, and the whole thing, and you come there and in council, I'm not saying people go to the dignity Abdu and all the rest of it, but it's the whole paraphernalia of DOI. So you go to these places, afterwards people leave and say, they are not inspiring. Because those people, the language they understand is so whoever that is, whether you're in the person, but and going back to when I can remember this going back to in Bekama when some people were standing for the position of chief, Sefo. The former chief, he was the Deputy Inspector General of the time. He came because he was using this Pajero government vehicle. He came, he was around 7, 8, I remembered. He came in this fancy car, and the reception was outrageous. And I can still remember it. People, and he ultimately won. People saying, charisma, and stuff like that. The other side, who was actually backed by Sanjali Bojan being one of the most powerful people to ever come from Brikama. Who I personally like, I was kind of young then, but when I go to his rallies and I see this man, he comes in his haftan and stuff like that, and you cannot distinguish him from the crowd. And I think DOI cannot be distinguished from the crowd. And I think that partly is to blame for why.
Esa, growing up, I mean, I don't remember anything from Jawara time politics, but what you hear from people, all of that mentality the Jawara government has painted DOI with. Do you think that is what still people look at them as? But also, personally, I think my biggest issue when it comes to, and I've said this to Halifa personally when we have interviews, is DOI way or no other way. it's like they don't bend rules on anything. Look at the coalition. What has Halifa not done to make us, for us to be here where we are today? During the impasse, when he speaks, we all listen. He calmed the entire country. You know, he was always calm, collected, he spoke, and we listened. And that really helped us as a community. You know, people will say, look, we should have given this man a chance because we have tested his leadership. He had shown us so much. But when it came to taking positions in the coalition, I have always said to Halifa, I believed Halifa and CDA in the government would have had some effect. But they said, no, you know, parliament. But what have they done in parliament also? We have to look at people based on their records. What have they done in parliament? The effect of them not being in cabinet. If they don't want to be in cabinet, can we not have somebody from DOI to be in cabinet because they are a member of the coalition? This is something that I have against them, and I always say it, and I've said it several times, and I'll keep saying it. But looking at DOI and Halifa as their candidate, what is your observation? Why do you think it's still difficult to get the message across?
I was going to say the same thing that you said, Jawara time, you know, honeymoon, looking at the level of education at the time.
Yeah.
To start with Halifa, I think, personally, I think he is one of, if not the most consistent and principled politicians Gambia has ever had. I mean, from Jawara time, being in opposition, I said this last week here, when we had, you know, independent aspirants who were all jumping now because they are rejected, claiming to be opposition now joining Barrow, political co-optation. Halifa refused, Halifa together with Sidia, refused to succumb to that on the Jawara, on the Jame, and even on the Barrow, one can say. That shows how principled he is, being in opposition. And of course, he wouldn't want to go into bed with the incumbent, especially Jawara and Jame. Barrow is different because he was part of everything that led to Barrow being in power. You know, and I respect him for that. I admire him for that. He has always been consistent, even the 3 years saga, you know, he has always been consistent, but clearly stated that, you know, nobody can do anything if President Barrow said that he will go for 5 years, constitutional. This was just a gentleman agreement. But then coming to DOI, like like Fatou said, I mean, I think he has said everything about that. But also we have to understand the context, like I said, the Cold War context. DOI came at a time in 86, 87, when Mikhail Gorbachev, the former Soviet leader, just came to power. And his agenda was he embarked on 2 reforms, the Perestroika and Glasnost. These were political and economic reforms. And these political and economic reforms ultimately led to you know, the disintegration of the Soviet Union. And socialism collapsed and was thrown in the trash can. And then people said that liberal democracy has finally triumphed. So I think DOI came at a time where it was a bit late, you know, to spread the ideas of socialism. We can say in Cuba, the Castro era, this was a time when they were practicing communism. This was a time when the Cold War was at its height. And if you talk to people at the time, they can easily understand. But they came at a time when the Cold War was eventually ending. You know, 86, 87, then 89, the Berlin Wall collapsed, 91, 92, the Soviet Union disintegrated. All those Soviet republics gained their independence and were on their own. So just like he said, the message, it's quite good, yes. DOI talking about socialism, DOI talking about, you know, corporate, you know, banking system. DOI talking about socialist central planning. DOI is spreading this message, but does it resonate with an ordinary Gambian? That's the central question here. And I think this is a very important question, a fundamental question to ask ourselves, 35 years of existence. Why is DOI not electable at elections in the Gambia? The way they communicate to people, Halifa wouldn't come and tell Gambian that I'll build your roads for you, I'll build hospitals. Even right now, listening to his campaign and stop, you know, stop meetings, he wouldn't mention these things. I think, you know, what he said even at the nomination was that this is the final battle of ideas. I mean, this is my last chance, you know, my last attempt. I will leave you people here, you know, advising the young people how to take charge of their own destiny. And I think, you know, Gambians find it a bit problematic to listen to DOI, to understand these ideologies. And I think also, not even with an ordinary Gambian, but sometimes you even engage some DOI sympathizers. I do hear people say, you know, I am DOI because they are policy. And sometimes I engage them. Even today, I engage someone in my class. I said, what is DOI's policy? What is DOI's ideology? And they find it difficult to even explain to you. what is socialist central planning? I can make reference to the debate between Ismaila and Khalifa. There I asked some people, like, what is Doy's message about this ideology and all that? And today, even if you invite Khalifa here, you ask him about socialism and all that, I mean, he's the type of politician who will go around, will not even answer the question.
No,
I remember also an interview was held with Sidia. What is Doy's ideology? Sidia will also go around, and you find it difficult to even understand what they are saying.
Yeah.
I remember Khalifa was even provoked, you know, when Ismaila said at the debate that Doy is communism repackaged, and he was like, no, that is not true. That is not coming from us. You're the one saying it. Do you understand? So it's like, is Doy still with that socialism ideology that they want to spread to Gambia? Talking to the Gambian people about these things. Gambians, the message is good, but how do you relate? How do you make sure that an ordinary Gambian understands this? To the point now, people just make mockery of Khalifa's statement. They say, oh, campaign all the time. You say, Bankola aranke so, Bankola thing, dindi wili killing, wolaka jinna karambulto, ulbedoko bondila minto here and there.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, like, Doy is constantly repeating the same message. The same message is coming election in, election out. That is the same message that we are receiving. And an ordinary Gambian out there, just like he said, they want, if you come, you are in your big Garambubu, you are on this car, you know, exactly.
And
that is
Benachin,
the politics of Benachin. And Doy wants to change that. Yes, it's a good intention. But in reality, like we said, they don't want to compromise that. They want to go, like, spread the message. Although it will be difficult, but they want to get it down to the Gambian people. But will it get down to the ordinary Gambian people is the problem here. Comparing him to other politicians out there, I think he's done fantastic. You know, looking at the coalition, he did a very good job when he spoke at the time. People listened to him, and that is the kind of leadership that we want. He did well in that coalition building, and coming also, like, people tend to have reservations with Doy now, and they ask themselves, Kabrin Jawara time, you call Khalifa to government, you say, Jamila time, Barrow even came, you build the house, I've always defended him, especially with the coalition thing, when, you know, people say that Khalifa was not part of government. I said, no, but the parliament is also part of government. It's another arm of government. But during the debate, he said this clearly, that they only removed Jammeh, and that the mess that happened, the failure that happened in the coalition, it's not their responsibility, because Barrow ultimately became an executive president with executive power. So Doy was not part of that, meaning he exonerated Doy from the mess that is created in the coalition. And that then brings us to assess Khalifa again. Is he the type of leader who wants to take responsibility when things go wrong? Because now you said, oh, there was success. Because that is why, in fact, I disagree with both Ismaila and Khalifa at that debate. In 2016, you never told us that the coalition will have two phases. Why will you come in 2021 and tell us that, oh, the coalition had two phases? The first phase was to remove Jammeh, and the second phase was to bring system change. Fatou, if you want to remove let's say, a snake from a room here, you know very well that you have to open the door in order to remove that snake. So if you open the door and cannot remove that snake to clean the room, did you succeed? You are failing that. So if the Khalifa comes and tells us that, yes, we were there, we brought the change of government, but the system change, we were not part of it. Begs the question, and then he said it clearly, which also, I mean, so Gambians should be asking, what type of leader will he be? Someone who said, the reason why they don't want to be part of cabinet is that they don't want to be fired. Do you understand? So you want to work, you want people to work under you,
but you never want
to work under people.
Anybody,
it shows the type of leader he is also, in terms of one, taking responsibility, in terms of owning up to responsibility, because in leadership responsibility, you take credit for the success, but you also take blames for the failures and the challenges. So it also begs the question, is he the type of leader that Gambians want, who will be, you know, responsible, who will take responsibility when it comes to failures and all that? Is he that leader who wants to work with people or work under people because he doesn't want to be fired and he feels like he wants to be? Because he said Doy's stance is that their principle is that they cannot be in cabinet, they have to be in parliament. But then you ask the question, what have they also done in parliament?
What have they
done?
Well,
debates in terms of laws here
but
and there.
what have they done?
But
things like this year.
Exactly. The biggest failures when it comes to a lot of challenges, especially the anti-corruption bill and all these problems that are going on. Well, I wouldn't say that they have not done much. They have been trying to educate people here and there. But then the most significant things, what have they done in parliament? He is a consistent politician. I just admire him. A principled politician, but he also has the downsides just like any of these other politicians.
Khalifa.
Yeah, yes, giving credit where it's due. He's principled, he is consistent, we agree with that. When he speaks, you're inspired, but the issue is how many people are listening because of the messaging. And I think I agree with them with most of the things is like you said, first of all, before you have people listen, they are the party that has a plan.
Yeah.
The problem is with the plan.
Yeah.
Like, how is that plan? And I think Fatou put it, the question of how relatable are the Gambian people to DOI and all these policies. Having a corporate bank and all, talking about system change. And when you see that rigidity, we're talking about DOI sticking to some of these policies for how many decades now, for over 3 decades, and shows that they're rigid. But then the thing about it is that if you have a socialist government in the modern globalized era, like how you will survive in the international domain. Yes, in the international domain. And for a party that says this country needs system change, it means that we are crumbling in so many ways. And we cannot fix that. We cannot ensure that system change without international involvement. So when you come in with those rigidities, like a party that was built in the post-Cold War era, when the world has moved on from America being close to a unipolar and now a globalized era, where we just went from the politics just sort of characterizing now the economic aspects, like we have the wars on economies and all of that. Lots of things have now gained prominence in international discourse that are not just based on the development agendas that they have in the agenda. Yes, you will see that they will talk about corporate banking because they want to look inward. Fine, that's good. But even in those, there are lots of other socio-cultural issues in our country. When you say that the Arankeso Tala, the villages Arankeso, and give it to an official body and all of that, right? We know how our village still, we have alcalos, we have those things still in these grassroots levels. If you just come and say, it's good that they own their own banking. I was talking to someone about this. It's good that they own their own money, that they run their own affairs. But we know that these are traditional or cultural things that are tied to this. How you take that away to say the area council is responsible, or they would not be answerable. There are some social issues you have to deal with as well. So that rigidity will not work with that. And if you just want to come and bring in your policy that this has nothing to do whether your family, it's what? Is it what? Hereditary, villages. And I think someone once asked him that. What will you do about villages, alcalos and safos, especially the issue of land? Yes, government-owned land, they cannot be issuing. But there are certain things, Fatou, we know. When we go to, we still have things like cabildos and all of that. You don't just come, right? System change is not about just uprooting all of the system in its entirety. There are some alignments that you have to find, and I don't tend to hear that much in some of their debates. So that again brings us back, how flexible is this party to understand that since their establishment, not just the Gambian concept on some of these things has changed, but then international relations has changed as well. We are in a modern globalized era where China has taken up over America ages ago, and then again, China being a superpower economically, but then America still having that political stronghold. You have Russia there, so you have Gambia, you're relating with all these countries, like that's how international relations on different bases. Like you cannot say that we are this, we are socialist, capitalism is wrong, we cannot go with the US in this sense. You have to strategize in the international domain and know that we are in an integrated world now, where all of these agendas, we have AIDS and all of, and I think someone once asked them as well, Khalifa, this is beautiful, you have a plan, but if you go in the international arena and then you get labeled, like we've seen with the Zimbabweans and all, how do you do? He has this thing of sometimes being condescending with some of his responses. And his response was that some of you people are conspiracy theorists who says these people are not willing to come. who says these people are not willing to help. And that was sort of controversial to me for someone who is saying they're looking inward and then saying that they are ready. I've sat with them. I've sat with the international development banks. Conditionality aid is a reality. Like when they bring in some of these things, you have to make certain compromises. So if he or the DOI wants to carry that rigidity into the international domain, we would miss out on certain bilateral, multilateral benefits, trade, economic issues, social issues, and all of that.
But if we go back to the issue we were discussing, gun petroleum. In this not only globalized world, but globalized economies.
Yes.
They are so interconnected and interlinked. So that Citibank in New York, okay, is responsible for giving credit to that supplier that is bringing here. But it's all interconnected like that. So, but some of those, the mechanics of some of those, how those international economies work, may be inconsistent with your, with your domestic.
Can you change the power quickly, Sire? This is now.
December 2021, one of the Gambia's most crucial elections is here. At Fatou, we got you covered. Our team of credible and knowledgeable analysts will bring you exclusive analysis of the event step by step and ballot by ballot coverage. They'll be joined by reputable studio guests to help analyze and break down key ballot issues to meet your needs. As candidates battle for the soul of the Gambia, our team of panelists will get you the information you need.
Yeah, so the issue is, even in Europe at the moment, some of those hardline left-wing politicians who still hold on to some of the socialist tendencies are not making any, they are always made as outcasts. So in this modern age, in this globalized world, in globalized economies, especially places like countries like Gambia, I think I would struggle to say socialism can really work here. So I think so I think the political message in terms of the politics and economies, I think they really realistically they have to look at it or change. Okay, if it is not working, then try to find ways of
change, but
of
evolve with
evolve. Exactly, evolve.
I see a lot of evolve. I see Sabar now, and I see young people. I know.
Like they say, change in order to conserve.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the show. Esther, final message.
Yeah,
Nawek already sending us to go now. So.
Well, anyway, that shows the type of country we have. I mean, looking forward to December 4th, presidential election. I'm so passionate about it. I want to see what Gambians will decide, whether they want to vote for continuity of leadership or change of leadership. But I hope this election will be an election that Gambians will want to consolidate the democratic gains, that Gambians are voting for progress, development. Gambians want to vote for change. System change, as Doi has been saying.
Abdullah?
Again, I'll keep it very short. Again, it's important. What is at stake is about a leader that will transform our fortunes. Okay, in the middle of this program, electricity has gone off. So it just shows you we really need people who can change this country. So I hope Gambians would vote for those candidates who can transform our nation and our fortunes.
All right, and my message is that it's never too late. Don't say your mind has been made up. We're seeing, as you said, light went off. We saw the petroleum scandal as well. And as they go on these campaigns, we're getting clues on who they could be as presidents or as leaders of this country. Every sector is failing, so listen on what they are prioritizing on, and then we can make up our mind on who is about to transform this country, about what we yearn as a democracy.
Thank you very much. And next week, inshallah, we'll look at Esa Fall and Abdullah Ibrahim Jame. Abdullah was at the Civil Aviation. Esa, TRRC. We'll look at their records as well. And of course, we'll look at what happened on the campaign trail. Jame should be speaking this week. Let's see whether Barrow will go out with his promise of warning Mama Kande. All of that and much more next week, inshallah. Good night to you all. See you next week. Bye-bye.
December 2021, one of the Gambia's most crucial elections is here. At Kerr Fatou, we got you covered. Our team of credible and knowledgeable analysts will bring you exclusive analysis of the event step by step and ballot by ballot coverage. They'll be joined by reputable studio guests to help analyze and break down key ballot issues to meet your needs. As candidates battle for the soul of the Gambia, our team of panelists will get you the information you need to make informed choices. Join our coverage Race for the State House every Thursday at 6 p.m. You decide, we got you covered. Your voice, your ballot with Kerr Fatou.
You have to pay. Look at my sleep. I think I am cheated.
Yes, you are cheated. This is not what they stated on your employment letter.
It's okay. Just give it to me. I think Fatou must explain this better.
Go and see her.
Let me go to our office now. I think I am cheated. Look at my slip. I did not buy PE tax. Why did you deduct it from my salary?
No, Lamin. PAY is an acronym which means pay as you earn. Employment income tax is any profit or gain arising from employment. It includes salaries, wages, bonuses, leave pay, overtime, allowances, and commissions. The employer is charged with the responsibility of deducting the tax at source and remit to GRA monthly before or on the 15th of the following month.
Really?
Yes. Any employee who earns incomes from $2,000 and above per month arising from employment in the Gambia is subjected to employment income tax.
But what if my employer deducts my salary and does not pay to GRA?
Then it means your employer is cheating on you and the government. Anytime if detected, your employer will be charged to pay the full amount and you cannot get any document from GRA indicating your tax compliance.
Thank you very much for making me understand. I think from now on, I will be finding out with you to know whether my taxes deducted from the salary are paid to GRA or not. And I will urge every employee to do the same. Thank you very much.
This information is from the Gambia Revenue Authority. For more detailed information about your pay income tax obligations, please visit any of the nearest GIA offices. The Gambia Revenue Authority, collecting revenue for national development.
GRA, you are more dollar for more fair tax.
lan la sam pap
dee na
déedéet daf ma yónni woon ma joué ko bii waaw yàlla def mu gagné jàppoon $100,000 la
la ilaha illallah
te yow xam nga ne sama papa dafa amee cardiaque
yow da ngaa dof yow xam nga luy $100,000
xam naa ko kay man naa lu ñëw bëggoon nga dimbali ci
demal na nga def damaa toog rek sama xel mi ne ci yow xam nga bërki démb li daal si benn waay fee waaw ma romb ko rek bërki démb waaw muy yuuxu di tëb ma ni kii lu ko dal ñu ne ma daal ci loto gaming Gambie bi la laal
jar na ko
laal na ci lu di waaw
nga dafa am quarté am kente am tiercé waaw maanaam nag tey jii kente bi la te jackpot bee passé xaalis
kente mooy lan
kente maanaam mooy juróomi fas yi
waaw beneen bi
am na quarté mooy ñeenti fas yi ak tiercé tey nag xaalis bi daa gën a yokk lu tax ndax jackpot bële dañ kaa tegaat ci bii maanaam juróomi fas yi boo ko jàppee ci ordre mooy risque nga désordre bi sax day fay ah bu ma ko jàppoon
yooyu moom noonu la demee da ngay dem rek jouer
am na lu ma yaakaar
man gis naa seen kii yi kees yu ndaw yi ci biir dëkk bi mais daal dama ne lii moom amul xaalis da nga ciy def sa xaalis
day jël wecce rek sànni ko fa xool jëmbat la laa ilaha illallah yow li nga wax ni tey ji bu yàlla dogaloon ma gañe ko lu mu gàtt
fi mu toll nii boo gañe woon $100,000
waaw lu may def
waaw nooy def
xam nga yow sama xarit nga
waaw
damay fexe nga rey say noonu
ci nan
lu mu gàtt $50,000
waay
Thierno woowee l'ambulance
lan la lu xew ni
sa baay gay dee na
Sama papa kay lu ko rey
50,000 dalaa ne ko boo ma gañaloon si li ma la yónni dama ko koy jox mu daanu ni sama kaw
man waxuma ko mu waxee woon la ko noonu yow la ko waroon informé ndax yow yaa ko gañe yaa gañe jàppoon.
Better and stronger as the sole ground operator at the Banjul International Airport. With an expansion in travel services, customers are assured of GIA's capacity to cater for all their travel needs, provided by professional, experienced, and ever-smiling staff. GIA's Hajj package and services, by far the best in the country, give the customers the opportunity for a memorable Hajj experience. For a more efficient cargo services, GIA means business as it launches its new multi-million-dollar ultra-modern cargo complex to revitalize and stimulate air transport. GIA, the pride of the Gambia.
Gamcel data, now even better. Enjoy 20% extra data on all Gamcel data bundles. Buy 20 megabytes and get extra 4 megabytes. Buy 50 megabytes and get extra 10 megabytes. Buy 100 megabytes and get extra 20 megabytes. Any amount of Gamcel data bundle you buy, you will receive 20% extra data for free. Dial *302* data amount hash or go to your EJA menu and choose your data bundle now. Gamcel data, it's fast, lasts longer and very reliable. Gamcel EJA.